First and foremost, I have to say we still live in a real world while Russia lives in Orwellian world where black is white, evil is good, and crime is heroism. So, and that is of course something that we have to note, that it is still possible in 21st century create a society where this Orwellian books are becoming reality. But the other part I think is information is a big part of the war. And I here would quote Napoleon, who said once that in a battlefield, morale to the physique of the troops is what 3 is to 1. So the troops that believe, that have belief in the idea what they're fighting for are better. And I think that is what we've seen in Ukraine, where Ukrainian soldiers that do understand what they fight for, while Russian soldiers don't understand very well or just understand they are fighting for money, is one of the key factors in the outcomes of a battlefield. So it is really one of the strategic elements of war. I think there are 2 elements of a cyber. One element of a cyber is a pure cyber attack as we know it. And the first lesson is we've not seen much. I know for once Latvia has been under the historical levels of cyber attacks for months, and they didn't really penetrate. So there we haven't seen much to learn from, other than that we've got better and Russians are not as good as advertised. The other part is information piece of a cyber. That is where I think there's a lot to learn. And for instance, the way platforms are being used for disinformation, in particular here I would refer to Telegram, which is now the backbone of Russian disinformation and is what I would call a compromise platform to be on. So I don't recommend anyone to use it unless it is strictly necessary. But that also brings me to the point that it is really important what kind of apps, what kind of messengers our societies use, because in a case of a crisis, if that is an app controlled by the adversary, it can be turned around and used against us. And I think that is clearly one of the lessons we should take from Ukraine and make sure that we're not vulnerable in that area in the future. Actually, it's ironic in a way. We in our system have AI systems that are tracking Russian bots now for like 6 years. And yes, we saw a big spike of Russian bot activity. But the irony of the situation is that the relative efficacy of these botnets decreased during the war rather than increased. Why? Because people became so much more active. And the thing that I've seen in Ukraine is basically every Ukrainian that has a social media account became a information warrior for Ukraine, thus making this amount of information, quality information, creative information about Ukraine so much more effective than the Russian bots. But yes, they are. They will continue to be, and we have to design the strategies. But in this particular case, I would say they didn't work as well as Russians would have hoped. I think, well, we don't know what the future brings. I think Secretary General has clearly articulated if there is an attack on any of the members of the alliance, Article 5 will be evoked. And keeping it in that ambiguous language is, I think, that what we should do, and use this as a deterrence to Russia to escalate this conflict further on. Although I have to admit, frankly, I don't think they have much of a capacity left, neither in a pure traditional military area, nor in a cyber area, where they, I think, have used everything they had at their disposal already. And we see what is the success or failure of those. Well, I think first and foremost in Europe, the key already starting narrative is that the inflation and the energy costs we have is because we support Ukraine. If we stop supporting Ukraine, that problem will go away. That is what is, I think, now the core core effort of Russian disinformation that is starting. But of course, as winter kicks in, it will be even further. Second, we've seen for some time already a campaign against the Ukrainian refugees. You saw that in Poland. We've seen it in Baltics and other places. It's going to continue. I think also they will, at some point, if they start to lose more, they yet again will use their nuclear threats. That is also something that we have to expect, especially if they are getting hammered by Ukrainians on the battlefield. And of course, the last piece I do think they will have to do is that they'll have to try to portray that Russia is good, Russia is doing very well, we are very stable, everything is fine. And that, of course, by stating that, I allude to the idea that I don't think it will be like that in Russia in a foreseeable time. This is like an interesting phenomenon. Partly, it is, of course, used really at the emotional moments by people to kind of rally and do something, sometimes for a better cause, sometimes for the cause that I might not quite agree with. But also what we have to see is sometimes some much more designed and deliberate campaigns are masqueraded as anonymous. So it's always important to understand the context and who's using it. But by and large, I think with the way these attacks go, at the end of the day, you can tell what is really behind, whether that's really hacktivism, there's groups of people that kind of personally get involved, or is there some more organized malign or actor actually disguising its campaign under this brand of anonymous.